Hi, everyone. I'm Harley Carnes, and welcome to Harley on the Headlines. There is a fascinating and troubling brouhaha at the Pentagon between the administration and the news media. The War Department has come up with new rules for the press, and most of the major news outlets on both sides of the ideological aisle are refusing to sign it. Signing it means acknowledgement of what the Pentagon's new news media policy is. Not following it can get your credentials tossed and you with them. So let's talk about it and figure out where President Trump is right and where he's wrong on this particular topic. The new policy says that reporters are restricted on where they can go in the Pentagon, only approved areas. And even in those areas, you must have a Pentagon escort. And reporters cannot talk to people in the Pentagon without permission in search of information, classified or otherwise, again, without permission. Now, this will take a minute, so please stay with me on this. The Pentagon calls it common sense rules. You can't just have reporters roaming all over the Pentagon, which is the world's largest office building with more than 18 miles of corridor. Well, that is common sense. However, that's already the case. Reporters cannot just roam all over the Pentagon. Classified areas are already off limits, lacking special permission, and in cases like that, you will be escorted in and out. Now, here's what the military is concerned about. There are a lot of people, who are not working in classified areas that know classified things. Secrets, in other words, that the Pentagon does not want the world to know. And limiting access to all of them is difficult because they're not all sequestered behind signs that would keep an enterprising reporter out. So you get what the Pentagon's trying to do here, keep its headquarters from becoming a sieve of leaked information, which happens all too often. You can easily understand why it feels the need to put up more guardrails as well. The news media that had the wherewithal to have reporters at the Pentagon once numbered about a dozen major mainstream outlets. Now, anyone with a cell phone and a notepad can call him or herself a journalist and try to get Pentagon credentials. It's become the Wild West. Now, some of that is good, very good, because it keeps the mainstream media from being able to control nearly everything that you see and hear and to craft your understanding of what is to the benefit or the harm of whatever administration is in power. We have seen this new dynamic play out in real time in the last 10 years or more. Now, here is where the new policy runs afoul of the Constitution, in my not necessarily humble opinion. It says that I, for example, as a reporter, cannot ask for information from anyone at the Pentagon, whether it's classified or unclassified. To that, I would have to say bullshit. I mean, I can ask, I can speak, I can try to make friends with anyone who can communicate with me on this planet, as far as I'm concerned. They don't have to tell me squat, but don't tell me I can't speak. And don't stick some government minder at my elbow either. That smells like Russia. Not China, they don't even pretend. This new restrictive policy most likely originated in the Pentagon itself, not with President Trump. Now, that's also an opinion, but here's why I say it. Trump has been by far the most open and accessible president in my life, and that goes back to John Kennedy. Trump has been a wide open book, talking to reporters and answering every question that comes if he can. No reporter or observer can rightly claim that he's totalitarian or even autocratic in that regard, not unless they are suffering from an active TDS fever. The Pentagon, on the other hand, is by its very nature a great big concrete box of secrets, and the Pentagon is facing some very real threats to this country, primarily from China. When things start to get tense in the world, the Pentagon starts to eat more protein, grow some bristles, and slam the door on the inquisitive who lack self-control. And we have a media today that is a lot more Wild West than Sixth Avenue. Vastly inexperienced, therefore gullible, politically tuned to the left, and far too much under the sway of operators who are actual enemies of a representative republic and personal liberty. So it seems easier to slam the doors and put leashes on the media dogs and hide the file folders. I worked in the Pentagon for a short while, back during the Vietnam War. Reporters have always needed permission to get into the bowels of the building. Those who were there regularly could learn their way around, which is a job in itself. Those who were not yet known and trusted would get some authorization, direction to get to the office of someone you wanted to interview, and maybe an Army private to show you how to get there. You'd be glad you had them, let me tell you. But no one told a reporter, or would think of telling one, that he or she couldn't speak to anyone they encountered without getting permission. That would be totally un-American. Now, that's not to say that the people you encountered in the Pentagon were going to stand on those very busy hallways and talk their fool heads off. It doesn't work that way. It's tricky business these days. Part of the Pentagon's job is to keep secrets. Part of the media's job is to uncover secrets. It's also the press's job to be judicious in the publication of those secrets, because some secrets should remain in the box, not because the public doesn't have the right to know, but because sometimes divulging a secret just because you have it is ill-advised and can potentially put good men and women in uniform in greater danger. Or maybe those who aren't in uniform, CIA and others come to mind, because the secret helps America's enemies more than its elucidation benefits Americans. An inexperienced, inept, or politically inspired reporter might not know or even care about the difference. There is some sense to the idea behind the Pentagon's new policy, but it most definitely should not stand as it is. Hats off to Instagram and Meta, which owns it. There is a new rule. Instagram content will be restricted to children ages 13 and younger. No more porn reels and other content meant for adult eyes for children, not without a parent's consent. The PG-13 rule will be the new default setting, too. A parent would have to actually change it. Will smart kids figure out a way around that? Rhetorical question, maybe, huh? They have to try, though, does Meta and Instagram. The harm social media has already done to so many children is difficult to calculate. The government shutdown will probably become the largest ever, the longest ever. We need to be clear about why it is happening. The Congress couldn't come up with a budget, which has become a habit. The resulting habit has long been to just continue spending the same amount of money, kicking the can down the road, so to speak, while discussions continue toward hammering out a budget. It's called a continuing resolution. This time, Democrats demanded that the continuing resolution be not that, but would include more spending. Obamacare for illegals is one component of what they wanted to spend more money on, but it doesn't matter what it was. They demand to spend more rather than continue what was already happening, which was to spend too much while negotiations continue. That's changing the process, and it's an obvious non-starter. It would be if shoes were on other feet, too. It's pure, ugly politics, and the people who are being hurt are growing in number. Lastly, we are a step closer to a trip to Mars. SpaceX successfully launched its full-sized Starship rocket again on another test flight. It is the biggest rocket ever built, and it thundered. Love that word, because that's what it sounds like from a distance. Thunder, as it jumped off the ground in Texas, flew into space, and came back to land in the Indian Ocean. Just like other SpaceX ships, the boosters came back and landed not far from where they took off, this time in the Gulf of Mexico. Gosh, it's hard to remember to say it correctly. Gulf of America. Been saying Gulf of Mexico for a long time. One thought on that, by the way. Gulf of America is actually more accurate. This chunk of the world is full of Americas. North America, Central America, Latin America. The Gulf of America separates North America from Latin America, so maybe we ought to get used to it. It makes more sense, actually. I guess that'll actually do it for Harley on the Headlines today. Thank you for being there. Hope you picked up a few thought nuggets. and I hope you'll like, follow, subscribe, help pass the word. I cannot do it without you. Actually, don't want to. I'm Harley Carnes, and we'll see you soon.